It's rolling.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, for the purpose of the cameras, I'm Councillor Nick Bridges. I'm here with Officer Mark Oliver and the rest of the Land and Property Committee. I have a notice to read out to do with the film. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be filmed by the Council, live streamed on the internet, and will be capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated at the meeting, it is possible that the cameras will capture your image. By your presence, you are deemed to consent to be filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. If you address the Council/Committee, your contribution will be recorded and broadcast unless this is during a period when the meeting is in private session. As the chair of the meeting, I can, at my discretion, terminate or suspend filming. If, in my opinion, continuing to do so would prejudice the proceedings of the meeting, or if I consider that continued filming might infringe the rights of any individual or breach any statutory provision.
Thanks, great.
So, are there any apologies, Mark?
Just the one from Councillor Dixon. Sorry.
Councillor Brock. Are there any declarations of interest? I guess we should note that I'm a member of the Friends of Gumstall Brook, which comes up later in the meeting.
I'm a service user of the churn.
Yeah.
And I am the treasurer of Akiva.
Okie dokie.
Moving on to point 4. This is for, can we approve the notes of the Land and Property Group meeting? Oh, it says here on Tuesday, the 11th of July. I believe there was, and September the 26th as an accurate record. Everyone in saying aye?
Yep.
That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Point 5 is to do with public participation. There are no members of the public here. Point 6, member participation. A member may ask the chair any question in relation to the role and remit of the Land and Property Committee. Are there any questions? No, moving swiftly on then. Number 7 is the work programme, which is a standing item. There may not be any points, but are there any?
A quick update, if you like.
Oh, a quick update.
Okay. Just to keep you really up to date with what we're doing on with the grounds team. We've done some in-house hedge cutting this year. We've hired the equipment. We're just learning to see what sort of equipment we can use and what's best for us for the next couple of years. I've already penciled in a larger piece of machinery for next year, so we can actually get these hedges back to what they should be, back to the right width and back to the right height, so that it'll be a lot easier for us to cut in the future.
Sorry, which hedges?
All of the hedges that we are responsible for. It's quite a few. We were on hedge cutting for about 3.5 weeks. And it's quite time consuming. It takes a lot of staff because we have to have bank staff as well, just to look out for the members of the public. But it's really good for development as well, the staff.
They've done a very good job at Thistle Park.
Yeah. Well, this is it. Whereas we'd have normally got a contract around to lower the hedges, they were up about 8 foot, weren't they? And we've got them right down to 4 foot. So you can actually, there's a better surveillance around most of our open parks now, which is a really good improvement for us.
Does that affect bird nesting?
Sorry?
Does it, so the hedges provide good nesting habitats?
Yes.
So if you take it down by half, does it still allow for bird nesting?
Yeah, because they normally nest lower down in the hedge anyway. Yeah. And they were allowed to cut from the 1st of September for nesting. I'm getting in some quotes, or I'm trying to find some quotes for relaying the path in the Abbey grounds. Obviously, it would be a huge job, and the St Michael's Park. We'll get those quotes in to actually hopefully get some grants, to look at some grants that will be suited to those expenditures. That's like a sort of a long term.
Why are we needing to relay them? Just age?
Yeah, just wear and tear. The lights in the Abbey grounds all working except for number 2. I don't know whether anyone's noticed, but number 2 has an issue, and I'm getting NVO to sort out.
For people who don't know where number 2 is.
Right by the Norman Arch, or by the depot. Trees, I'm looking at to survey all of the trees around the town. I've been trying to do this for a couple of years really now, and it's just getting an increased budget hopefully next year, so that we can manage a lot of the back for the tree. And that's really what I wanted to say for the
Don't we have
updates.
tree wardens still, on the volunteer people who are
No.
interested in trees? We used to have them.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's a good point.
Well, there certainly are groups in town that are interested in the trees.
Yes, this
Might be interesting. I mean, I know Constance.
acquaintance called Anthea Steele, who was part of this.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Any more comments on the work programme?
Could I just check on the dead tree in the Abbey grounds?
It's down.
Oh, has it come down now?
Yeah, last week. And
They
I
took it
said,
in.
yeah, we'll be happy.
Every time I walk past, I think, I mean, I'm not an expert, but I think it's probably dead.
Yeah, you mentioned it last month.
Yeah.
And I thought, right, let's get it done before the next.
And have we got a replacement going in? Is that us?
We will do, yeah. And I'll apply to English Heritage to get to plant it.
Super, thanks.
When might you get round to the obelisk?
Get round to,
Well, this sort of short-term improvements.
I'm looking at quotes for short term, but as we said last month, we don't want to be spending too much money on something that is, in the state of repair that it is at the moment. So there is a builder that has seen it, and he's going to get a quote back to me to repair the doorway on the side. And we may look to volunteers to repaint, but we haven't had a great deal of interest to hire at the moment.
No.
We're still working with Chris Helston, the Scouts leader, to get it up together and organised to rent, to hire out.
Okay. And there's no Wi-Fi there, is there?
No.
So you're limiting your audience to those people who don't really want to have office meetings. Any more questions on the work programme? No, okay. Moving on to the fees and charges review. So to consider fees and charges to be recommended to council for 2024 to 2025.
Shall I?
You'd like to make a statement, Natalie?
So I've set out the things that, the recommendations that I'm making as an officer, on, it's not page numbers, but they're set out at the beginning of the report. So there's the green spaces licence, the football charges, events, Tonkin St Michael's Park and filming permits. So then I've got all the research that was done to form these recommendations, but when we're voting, that's what, unless there's objections or comments, I'm suggesting that we approve to take to council.
Can you just help us, because there were many, oh, sorry.
Yeah, right.
Can you help us, because there were many different recommendations scattered about? Can you just summarize all of the recommendations by topic?
So green space is a license. Currently, we make money on it. It doesn't take that much time, but we also don't market it. I recommend we start marketing it next year, and we increase our fees because we are low other councils in the area. We're about 50% lower than other councils in the area. But because we have had interest dropping off, I'm suggesting not hiking them hugely. So I've compromised at £55 up from £51.25. And we include an admin fee, so that the time it takes to process these licenses is covered by the admin fee, and then we've got profit.
Can I just clarify, is that per hour or per event?
So the license grants the license holder a 2-hour slot in the same park every week for 12 months.
Oh, so this would be like for doing little exercise videos and things like that. I see.
There's PT trainers. It's basically what we have.
Okay.
Do we have many?
We have 5 this year, 2 from the same person. So that's green spaces license recommendation.
Sorry, Chairman, can I suggest, please, that we vote on each of these recommendations? Otherwise, I will become confused.
Okay.
That's a good
And
point.
for clarity, this is for us to propose and then the full council votes on it, is that correct? Or the fact that if we approve it, is it automatically passed by the full council?
It will go to the council, that one, so.
Yes, but I anticipate they would make changes at that point.
Okay, so this is, yeah.
And if we vote down any of these, council won't see them.
We will have to regroup, yeah.
Okay.
And for clarity, we're going to revisit this next year. So if we have issues to it being a little bit too cheap,
Yeah.
we actually can up it a bit more next year.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's sort of correcting the ground now
Yeah.
for the following years.
Okay. Oh, and one question I had generally about all these things is these all are going to be inflation linked. So things automatically stay the same. If something, we're going to come on to talking about the churn project a bit later on. That is going to be inflation linked, but I didn't see that in writing. I didn't actually see anything here about prices being inflation linked either.
We decided to leave that out so that we can review them annually, which gives us, it doesn't fix us to just inflation.
Fine. Yep, I'm with
And
you.
it's not something that will, I'm quite determined to actually review it every single year.
Brilliant. As long as they are reviewed
Just to
every year,
keep
that's
our
great.
costs, because, it's essential that
Yeah.
we're not supplementing anyone
Yeah.
really.
As long as it's clear to everybody that
Subsidised.
these things do get reviewed every year, that's happy. Yes, I'm happy with that. Okay, so your point really is, shall we vote on each one? Are you happy with that, Nathalie, or do you want to vote on?
That's a good way to.
Okay. Okay, well, the first one was green spaces license. Everyone in favour? Great. Okay, moving on to football charges. Does anyone have any comments to make about football charges?
Shall I quickly summarise as well?
Natalie?
So football, I've based these figures on the 38-week season. At the moment, it looks quite rosy. We made a loss, but it's not a huge loss. But we know that our teams have gone down this year. So we only have one team using our facilities. We've got no guarantee of them coming back next year. So I didn't want to drastically suggest a big increase. But the biggest cost to us is cleaning the changing rooms. So what I have added is an option for them to not use the changing rooms, which still covers our costs, but actually means they could pay less than they're paying now, but we don't incur the costs of cleaning changing rooms. So the fee is £70 for a senior match, and we only really have senior teams using our facilities, or £44 if they're not using our facilities.
Councillor Bloomer.
By saying they're not to use the changing rooms, they still have access to the toilets, right?
No, because the changing rooms wouldn't be open and we then have to clean them. But there is a
Portaloo,
Waterloo up there.
And who cleans the Portaloo?
the Portaloo people, the contractor.
So that's a cost that's separate.
Okay.
You've got the Portaloo there mainly, well, it was firstly asked for us to put a Portaloo up there for the skate skaters, skateboards.
And it is their choice. So they could save money and not use the changing rooms, or they could pay, it's £10 more than they currently pay per match, which brings it in line with.
And would that cover the costs of the cleaning?
And if I've understood correctly, having another team join us would suddenly make our finances much rosier.
Yes.
Yeah, so there you go. Let's encourage more football playing in Cirencester. Any more comments?
Oh, who would hold the, who would be holding the key for the changing rooms to open up when they have them booked to be opened?
So we have a system where we can deadlock, what we call deadlocking the pavilion, so that the football teams have their own keys. And if they're booked in for that Saturday, then we'd unlock our deadlock, so that they can override that.
But somebody has to be going off and doing that.
We do that on the Friday before normally the Saturday.
So we're not paying an extra hourly rate of some land. Okay, great, got you, thank you.
And then actually, we've got the sports equipment that is actually an external door, so that they can actually store that, and they can.
We're not losing any money by having to sort out the, okay, fine, thank you.
Great. Any more comments, or shall we vote? Okay, all those in favour? That's unanimous. Moving on to events.
The events, the recommendation is to just bring us in line with community services and how they charge for the events, which is basically taking it by event basis. But I've introduced a £25 admin fee because it does take about an hour between emailing and getting the right licenses and risk assessments from the people applying for that events. So otherwise it's charities and local community events. I've reduced it down. At the moment, we have a community event, a community fundraiser and a local fundraiser, a commercial fundraiser and commercial event. So rather than segmenting it quite that much, I've now just made it charities and local community events, £25 admin fee, negotiable day fee, commercial events, portion of gross takings, and then a negotiable fee per day, minimum £200. And that is what community services do.
And I would just stress that exemptions apply and it's negotiable. Okay, so.
Yeah.
Councillor Bloomer.
Never mind.
Councillor Selwyn.
How would we, I know how the community services take the market income, of course, because we employ market operators. So there's somebody simply controlling the budget and how much they give us. How would we work out the proportion of gross takings? Because it may well be that different groups that hire out might have different ways of coping with their income stream. So have you thought that through?
No, because we haven't really had that scenario yet.
Right. And what proportion would we have? 10?
I think that's what Becky uses, 10.
Because, yeah, I mean, it's going to have to be a negotiation. I think it could be. There's so many different scenarios. That's the problem. And we're trying not to deter people to come to us to talk to us about it. Thoroughly talk it through, and make sure we make the most of these opportunities. Really.
So if I could come back, so would an example of one of those bits for land and property be the Roman soldiers and the amphitheatre, for example?
That's local community, surely.
I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
It's a Kiva, that's done through a Kiva, so that would.
So give me an example of where we might have an income that you can think of. I'm just trying to picture in my mind what this thing might be.
This is my same question. I'm trying to understand what.
What is a commercial event from land and properties perspective?
We used to have the cinema in St Michael's Park. It's brought in about £2,000 for us.
Yeah.
Understood.
A mini music.
Mini festival we had in St Michael's Park.
Yeah.
That would have been one of those. Yeah. They were quite keen to come back.
Handlebars.
Handlebar. Yeah, I've got it. Yeah.
Understood.
Understood. Thank you.
Why have you not had cinema this year?
Since COVID, they haven't been.
Well, they have, but they've been intermittent.
Okay.
I believe half their team got COVID, so they weren't able to attend as much as we wanted them to.
Yeah, unicycles then, weren't they?
How much
Yeah.
does Bathurst Park charge for for example, something like that.
I don't know. That's nothing.
Because the prestige of having it at Bathurst Park might allure some people in to do it there rather than in whatever.
Well, of course, they're charging next year. for entry.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, also that.
Everybody, are they charging everybody?
No,
Not us.
no, they're having a method where GL7 people won't pay,
Okay.
tourists will pay. You'll have to buy a card, refundable £10 deposit for your card.
Is it a lifetime card?
That was the plan when it was being discussed a year ago. I'm not up to date with what they're, and apart from the fact that I've seen that they've now published that they will be charging. So
Is
we're not
that going to apply to people trying to go into Roots and Seeds and the?
if you are a postcoder, then you will have to pay to get in.
Need to get, sorry.
Yes, let's go.
Okay, thank you. And we want to get to a point of voting for this one.
Great stuff. Okay, well, let's all vote. That's unanimous. Petanque, is that how you pronounce it? Petanque in St Michael's Park. Change the fee to £2 per head for ad hoc group bookings and no change for University of the Third Age ongoing fee.
So sorry.
Yeah, please go for it.
When I benchmarked this one, we actually do quite well from the U3A ongoing bookings. So I'm not suggesting we change it. It's quite low maintenance for us to look after it. And then I just, for the ad hoc bookings, suggested £2 a head, which is what Gotherington Town Council do. And that's because they are reserving the pitch for themselves. Anyone could technically go and play if they have the right equipment, but if you're reserving the pitch, that's the fee I'm suggesting.
Anyone have any comments? Okay, shall we vote? Everyone in favour?
Sorry, Chair, could I just ask, do we have any ad hoc ever?
We've had 3 this year.
Oh, right. Every now and then.
Oh, what do we, the crazy golf?
So that's coming under National Trust, not National Trust, National Tennis.
Hmm.
That's
Oh,
under
okay.
their arrangement.
Well, with 4 of us in the, yes, can we vote? We are basically chorus, so we'll vote for that.
Mm.
And just note that councillor Boomer left the room. Filming permits, an admin fee of £75, brackets negotiable for student films. Natalie?
So this is a new income stream. Since Mark's been here, he's had 5 different companies approach about filming, so it's an opportunity we've missed out on the past. So I looked at what Gloucester City Council, what Oxford City Council charge. Because we're not a city, I went for Bracknell Forest Council, which is similar or smaller size, and used them to inform these recommendations of commercial and non-commercial rates.
Any comments? No, should we?
So
Just comment, yes?
just about students, because I know I think they teach film at the college, don't they? So I hope they would get it for free.
Yes. Well, I mean, we would, yeah. basically.
Can we just have a sort of like a student film fee or something for free just on your table so that we know that
Oh, I
that
see.
they'll be for free.
Well, I could add
Just add another.
£50. We want it student specific. Okay.
Well, you do say negotiable.
Yeah, it's negotiable for student films.
So
So just say 0 or something.
they might be doing something that brings in thousands of pounds.
I'm thinking as part of a school project.
I think if it was a school project and they came in and asked, they might not come and ask. But B, if
They probably wouldn't come in and ask.
Yeah, and but B, if they did, we would use our judgment to not charge.
Okay, I think what I'm asking is, can we just have a line on the table that says that that's what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Okay then. Well, subject to that amendment, or do we have to vote for the amendment first, don't we? So I love this system. All those in favour of voting for the amendment that Councillor Pilgrim has just suggested? That's unanimous. And now should we vote for the actual fee itself? All those in favour? There you go. We got there. Moving on to the next one.
Item 9.
Oh, just finished that, thank you.
Right. Okay, the next one is the allotment review. To consider the fees for allotments to be recommended to council for 2024, 2025. So, Natalie, you'd like to say something?
Yes. So this report, putting it together, we make a significant loss on our allotments as it currently is, 50% loss pretty much. So it needs to be considered. We last raised the fees in 2017 to 2018. That was a £10 increase at that point. So our current fees are £15.50 for half plot and £25.50 for a full plot across all of our sites. And I'm suggesting that we go with option A, which is to have a flat fee, all plots across all sites. Mainly because we're moving towards having half plots across all our sites, because full plots are not so popular now because they're too big for people to manage. And this seems like a fair approach to take that covers our costs. Option B is also there, and that is currently the way we have our charges. A full plot is not double the cost of a half plot. So it was just to reflect that the size of the land they've got is reflected in the fee, and also then to cover costs. If that makes sense.
Councillor Pilgrim.
Thank you. For the benefit of whoever may be watching, I will explain. I read this report with interest and some questions. I think I want to commend the officers on actually doing a thorough benchmarking exercise and revealing the costs. I understand that one of the main costs arises from rubbish, not just from people who have abandoned their plots, but also from fly tipping. And can I just ask before I continue, what happens with the green waste? Is there on-site composting?
Yes, there
So
is.
that's a group facility that everybody can use?
Yeah.
And how is that managed?
It's normally managed on site by the local.
By them, not by the town council?
No, it's not.
Okay, all right, fine. And are there other issues arising, like repair of fences and tree management and hedges and that sort of thing on
There
those?
would be a degree of clearance if, when we have a turnover of allotment holders.
That is in the costing, so that element is
Okay. Well, I think that these costs are very low. I understand that they're annual charges. I think they're very low. And as somebody who gardens, I know that gardening is actually can be an expensive hobby. So I don't think that it's necessarily something allotment running is something that people do because they don't have sufficient funds. But my instinct is that the costs proposed, even though they're an increase, are low. I would be interested in what the other councillors think, because as I understand it, I thought this was going to be a fixed fee for a few years, but if we're going to review it every year, perhaps what I'm about to say is inappropriate or unnecessary. But first of all, I think it would be prudent to every year hire one skip to go to one of the allotments, one of the town council allotments, so that every 3 years,
It's a clear out.
each allotment gets a clear out,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
which is a cost. But I think it would help the running of the allotments and also just prevent any buildup of bad waste. So I would recommend that, which is an additional cost, but I think it would be helpful. Secondly, I think that the deposit is too low. If the point is that you're trying to prevent the allotment users from abandoning their junk on the site when they leave, I think a higher refundable deposit would remind them that it was worthwhile clearing stuff away. So I would recommend a £100 deposit that was fully refundable. And finally, I think I would recommend that the plot prices were increased, but again, if this is going to be reviewed next year, I think they shouldn't just wash their faces with the anticipated costs. I think that we should just charge a little bit extra for contingency because things go wrong and unforeseen costs arise. So I would suggest that a half plot be £30, not £23, and perhaps £50 for a full plot because they're being phased out. So I open that up for debate, and you might all disagree with everything I say. I just think that might be helpful.
Oh, some very good points there.
Hmm.
Does anyone want to address that? Natalie, should we start with Natalie? What did you feel about that? You've done a lot of work on this.
My only thought with the skips, I don't know if Mark agrees, is that rather than dictating it must go to one site each year, there might be one site that needs it more than others.
Possibly, we can identify it.
But if
yeah,
it's like
on an
loose,
annual-
we operationally decide which side the skip needs to go that year,
Mm.
that might allow us the flexibility to
Yeah,
do
I mean, like Kings Hill, we've had 3 skips,
this year, yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
2 this year, just this year because of lighting. So, yeah.
So, which is another reason why I think you should just build in some extra
Yeah.
costs in here, because if that's the case, and yeah,
Is your comment about skips?
I was going to ask how long people typically hold the plot for.
Yeah, it varies. Some people give up after a year, some people have been going 20 years.
I'm just wondering if people are expecting a skip every 3 years, if that will confuse matters.
I also we don't want people to use the skip.
yeah.
It's for us.
Otherwise, they'll have a clear out at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, my point was, how do you stop, in effect, fly tipping?
Mm.
If people know that there's a skip there,
Very difficult.
will they make a special trip to dump their stuff there?
It's very difficult.
Because that could end up being quite expensive, couldn't it? But-
Kings Hill is a site where you can drive right up to it, and it's got a big 8-bar gate, and you can just drive through, dump your rubbish, and off you go. So
I don't think you should do it like that though.
no. I mean, I would be
CCTV cameras really is all you can do.
Yeah, but there's no way to put them. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
Okay. Councillor Selwyn?
I absolutely agree with Councillor Pellegrin's points about increasing the cost, primarily because on option A, we're looking at 4 of the 5 plots losing us money,
Mhm.
and 25 to 26, we're looking at 1 of the 4 plots losing us money. I would have thought, and the reason I agree with Andrew is that I really don't think, given the fact that we're already using £60,000 off of our reserves to keep ourselves going, I would support something that has black across the whole thing here. I really don't think that we should be recommending something that is actually going to cost us money
Right.
to
Yeah.
support as a principle.
Mhm.
And that principle's been established at most councils. The district council, for example, charges cost price for all the things that are available to some people, like green bins.
Mm.
They are the methodology is to charge whatever it takes to balance the books for those people that wish to have a green bin. If you wish to have a plot, then that's great. But I don't think that we should be proposing anything that is going to end up with us subsidising any of those services. I'm very happy to break even. I don't think that we should be having any red lines on there at any year.
Okay. I would counter that by saying that we as a council like to encourage good deeds, good ways of operating. So we could look at it that way.
By subsidising it,
In effect, yeah.
I don't think we can subsidise it. We don't have the money. We're £60,000 short this year.
Natalie?
There's also there's only 105 plots, so we can only benefit 105 people of Cirencester. So we are only subsidising a very small amount of people as well.
Okay.
So coming back, is there a principle here that we say that we will always, as a minimum, cover our basic maintenance costs that you very kindly worked out what they are? Should that be the principle, is that we don't pay for services that very few people get
That would be very helpful.
as a principle?
So can I ask the officer, what are the repercussions of increasing £23 to £30? I think that's really what we're boiling down to.
So at the moment, they're paying £15.50
Yeah,
if they're on a half plot, or £25.50 if they're on a full plot.
yeah.
So what we could do in terms of financially covering ourselves for this year is jump straight to what I proposed for 25-26 in option A. So everything is £30 for this year, which, because I've included inflation in the expected costs, produce more of a profit.
So we're effectively doubling, or near enough doubling their costs.
But they haven't gone up for, well, the last time they went up was 2017. And this, across the country, councils are subsidising allotments, and they're now looking at this. And I think Glasgow, it went up 300%, because they just cost so much, and they were being subsidised so significantly.
Did the 25-26 number include the £100 refundable deposit already?
No, so the other thing I've introduced is I suggest we introduce is a £15 admin fee when someone takes on a plot, which will help to cover the costs, which hasn't been factored into this because we don't know how many people are going to turn over in a year. So that will cover £6 for a new key. The new key has to be covered, and half an hour of office time, which is pretty much what, contribution. The deposit, we can't use the deposit, can we?
No.
It just sits in a separate account. So it would help at the end of a tenancy, but not before.
It won't be given back after 6 months, will it? It will be held until they.
Until they leave and clear away, just like with a tenancy of a property.
Well, we agreed that the deposit could go up to £100 rather than £51.
I do think it's reasonable to. I don't know how one could possibly administrate this, but £100 is a lot, and £50 is a lot, but less of a lot. And I wonder if
It might be that 100 is too much.
I think £100 is what it ought to be. I also think that there's going to be people that combining with the £30 cost are going to say, whoa. I wonder if there is a way we could say, hey, if you're on universal credit, whatever, then we give you the £50 cost of the deposit.
Councillor Selwyn.
I think my view would be, I think £100 is a significant barrier, and we don't want to put a barrier to entry up necessarily.
Yeah.
I think where we do want to come from is that we don't want to subsidise any of the allotments by pulling money out of town that a very limited number of people get. So I'm content with £50, bearing in mind it's a refundable deposit, isn't it?
What's the current refundable deposit? Is there one?
It's currently £51, so it's double what the current full.
Can we make it a nice round number rather than 51?
I know,
Like a
I think
60?
Can we make it 55 or 60?
One thing that's not being mentioned here is that if people just walk away from their allotments, there is work that it needs to be done tidying it up.
That's what the deposit is supposed to cover, yes.
Does £51 cover the work?
And how do we quantify that as a £55? No, we're not going to refund you that money. And how do we quantify, that's not that much, we'll give you the money back? Who decides what proportion is getting given back? Because we don't have the, like tenants do, a board saying, like they're having to
I think
prove.
staff costs, really. Staff costs, because you've got an hourly rate with add-on costs that you could apply, and somebody from the grounds crew is gonna have to go in there and clear it all away.
Okay, this person
So
spent 2
we're
hours.
charging you for 3 hours of staff time, which is,
But what normally happens is that they'll just go absent.
Yeah.
And then you're left wondering whether they're going to come back or not. and
If they're still paying their,
overgrown,
mm,
well, they'll pay up front normally for a
that's,
year.
yeah, it's not a monthly thing, so you don't know month to month if they.
No.
Yes.
So just
Kind of-
think about it, worst case scenario, you've got 11 months of growth and decay and
Yeah,
a falling down shed because they all
Yeah.
have shed.
Exactly that.
one doesn't cover that.
And, well, it probably doesn't, but but I take your point about 100 pounds is a barrier. I do take that point.
Councillor Selwyn?
Do we have, I know, for example, that an individual that it supervises the allotments just at the back of Queen's Road. Do we have allotment managers or somebody supervising it at each of the allotments, or is that the admin come down to you?
It mainly comes down to us with help with Pamela. She goes out and inspects allotments for us.
Another point is that even if we went to £30 an increase for a half plot next year, 24-25, that is still, is it not, going to show Chesterton as costing us money to operate, isn't it?
Yeah.
So on the principle that we should be adopting, well, for me, it's do we come up with a flat rate that will put us in the black for all the allotments, or do we factor in the costs of different allotments and change the costs based on the fact that at the end of it, we will still come out without having to pay for the service that some lucky residents are using?
I would recommend that there is a single fee, because otherwise it will be difficult to administer. And so can I just, having listened, can I just revise my proposal, which is that we charge £50 for a full plot, £30 for a half plot, a £50 deposit, and that we factor in 3 skips per annum as a minimum.
Could Natalie go away and cost that up for us and give
Yeah.
us a table?
I think that's a lot. I also think that £50 for as a deposit seems quite low.
You think it's too low? Okay.
Could we come in the middle and say 75?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like Dutch auction, but I think that a higher, £100 is too much. It's a psychological barrier.
I think so.
Because there's an
But,
additional £15 admin fee.
But wouldn't that be a psychological barrier to not leaving your £100?
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
That's what I was,
It needs to be a psychological barrier, doesn't it?
I think there's an expectation when you take on an allotment that it's not going to be a bare patch of ground about ready to go. You've got to do some work. So the standard that we need to leave it at is we don't need to weed it. We need to make sure the boundary is clear and it's safe and there's not metal glass. That's all we need to do. I'm just coming at this from when I was benchmarking. No one really has a deposit apart from Moulton and Marsh has a deposit. We have a deposit. Often from talking to Pamela, people query the deposit, and we used to give it back after 3 months. And now we don't do that. I don't understand why that was the case either. But most people having an allotment, I think, want to be there and they want to look after it. Citibank is a very successful allotment association, which is why it's particularly nice there. So it's like encouraging community rather than assuming people are going to do the worst.
but it's just stupid stuff like returning the key and not leaving your shed up that's falling to pieces and leaving your plastic chairs and all of that business. So, I think when people leave, they just have to be encouraged to take their stuff with them. That's all. That's what I'm thinking. And yes, there is not that much maintenance that the town council has to do, but there's still maintenance and you still have to go out there and check it, don't you? And, if it goes to a new allotment holder.
Cut the hedges as well,
Yeah.
it's general maintenance
Yeah.
as well as just
That is factored into our annual cost.
Okay, councillor Selwyn and then councillor Bloomer.
Just to develop that point, I would expect where an allotment to have a square bit. I don't care what state it's in, as long as there is nothing on the plot that's falling down, like old bits of sheds and stuff. The fact there's no dangerous stuff in the earth and bits of glass. Beyond that, it should simply be a rectangle of soil. So I'd expect it to be in any condition apart from dangerous. So I'm not quite sure how we would ever get the deposit back, because I would have thought the number of times where we actually have to go in there and spend money to get the plot back to a plot would be quite rare. So, and you've got to factor in the time involved in, have we ever had not given deposit back, and the admin time in managing the deposits coming in and then going out. They can't be banked because it doesn't form part of our revenue stream. So it simply be held in a separate area, which will give the accountants a bit of extra work as well. I suppose I would be in favour of potentially a nil deposit if we never give any of them back, and it's simply quicker for us to operate, and make certain that the charges that we do, and I think we're heading towards, correct if I'm wrong, we're heading towards 50 for a double and 30 for a single immediately for next year.
Assuming that covers the cost of
Well, it
of
will cover the
skips.
costs apart from Chesterton, but what I'm suggesting
Skips,
is
though.
here
Yeah.
is that when we get to this stage this time next year, we'll already have been paying £30 for the half-sized plot now.
Yeah.
And if that's still showing a red line, we can then
Yeah.
go up next year and
Yeah.
go for a 40
Yeah,
or whatever it is that means that it washes its face rather than us having to subsidise it. Is that where we are?
So do we know why
Yeah.
Chesterton is more expensive? We spending more there, or is it the wrong numbers?
So I don't know why the costs of,
So the way I worked it out is, so Pamela estimated to me she spends 3 hours a week averaged over the year working on allotments.
Yeah.
So I took the percentage of allotments each site and allocated her hours and her associated costs to that.
Yeah.
So Chesterton has just got fewer plots to the resources.
Yeah, fewer
Uh,
plots.
yeah.
Oh,
So we actually have split 7 plots that were returned this year at Chesterton. So we have reduced the wait list by 15, and then you've got more income now.
right. So if you were to do your sums based on a total number of plots across the whole of Cirencester, you did your maths differently, you might come out with a different figure per plot as opposed to per site.
you spread the costs over as evenly as you possibly could, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Right, okay. We can ask you, yeah, okay, well,
But it's actually because Chesterton Citibank actually probably takes less hours than is allocated to them because the association is so well set up and run. They take care of a lot of the issues themselves. I think Chesterton takes more customer service. So this is the sort of the average that I could come up with, because it's pretty hard to track the reality.
okay, Councillor Selwyn.
Early planters, I suppose I should state an interest in this, is that I was the person that got them that land from CDC because it was just laying empty. And I'm very glad the land is being used. It's excellent. And I am, to another statement of interest, I have actually got jam from that site. Very nice it was too. We're charging about £120, however, as a flat fee, are we? Well, that's great, as when we first did it, probably about 10 years ago. I wonder, is there any thought or justification for charging per plot for that lot as we are other places into?
So I would love to do that. Unfortunately, we signed the lease in 2020 and it runs to 2026 or
Yeah.
2025. So we cannot change before then.
But at 2025, then we can go on to the, we'll charge you exactly the same structure we do everybody else.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we also in that lease say we'll pay CDC £75 rent. So we actually make £20 from that a year.
What we pay £75 rent per annum?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we had it for £1.
So it's a bit of a
Sort that out.
confusing lease. But there's only 7 plots there, I believe, so it's not going to drastically change our figures. But we are also, we are required to look after the trees there, so,
Yeah.
and that came up this year, so.
Yeah.
It needs to be looked at when it comes up.
That's it. There's an issue of one of the trees and it would cost £1,900 to solve. And, you know, it's my belief that when we're taking on these lands, these pieces, parcels of land, that we should actually be ensuring that those sort of things are covered the first 10 years of taking it over.
Okay. Councillor Bloomberg, then I think we'll wrap up.
I would like to know the possibility of how feasible it would be, how ethically agreeable to the council it would be to shed ourselves, not intended, of these allotments. That was quite good, wasn't it? Of these allotments and make them into their own CICs and just off they go.
Sorry, make CIC.
Community interest. What's community interest? What's the third C? What's the second C? Community interest.
Company?
Something, anyway, little
Yeah.
like non-profits, basically.
Okay.
And maybe having a ground rent, selling the ground, but like just saying, right, you pay us a flat fee of 500 quid a year and you deal with all this yourselves.
I would advise against that because I think it would be dependent on a group formed for each site, which you cannot guarantee. Allotments are quite flexible, kind of voluntary things where, some people are more devoted than others. Also, for some reason, I don't know, there's an act of parliament about allotments, isn't there?
Mhm. Yeah.
And does it list because it's always parish councils that are in charge of them.
Yeah, you can actually have some allotment associations taking their own allotments over. And I believe that Citibank could be one of those, but then in Chesterton and Kings Hill, I don't feel we've got that sort of sense of community or of a club or association really.
Okay.
So it was brought up in the peer review.
Okay.
But we, if we could find a mechanism to use, to do that, then we could look at it in the next couple of years.
Just thinking about capital income.
I mean, if I could add, I like the idea. The only problem is that you have to have a group who will have a continuity across the years, and we already know that trying to get volunteer groups sustained,
Yeah.
community groups, for example, or friends of groups, there's always that issue of it might be great for the first couple of years, but when person A retires,
Yes.
3 years
That's what I
down
meant
the
to
line,
say. That's what I
who
meant
is going to take? And there's some big groups in town that are all civic society that I'm on, for example. We haven't had a chair for a year because you run out of volunteers who are busy volunteering across everything else that goes
Yes,
on in town.
understood,
So
yeah.
although it's a great idea, I just think that if we are facilitating, giving people and charging money that pays for our costs,
Yeah.
I'm content with that.
Okay.
I think.
Last point.
I would like to make a motion
Oh,
that we change the officer recommendation so that we charge £50 for a full plot, £30 for a half plot,
And 15.
and no deposit, but a £15 admin fee.
A 1.5 admin fee.
1.5, which is what you proposed.
Yeah.
And just before we go to that, if I may, how would we then deal with people that have already paid a deposit? Do we then give them all
Oh,
back?
because we already
Deposit?
charged the deposit.
We've already got the deposit in, we're sitting on it, so we can't give it back. It will simply mean that new plot holders would simply not have to give us the money for us to look after.
Yeah.
I want to keep the deposit.
I think there's two points there. There's the £50, £30 thing, which is quite separate, and that's probably going to be uncontentious.
Well, why don't I make that a change? That's my changed motion, that we change the costs to £50 for a full plot and £30 for a half plot.
Do the officers have any issue with that? Because we can always come back at a future meeting instead if you want to review this.
I would suggest maybe £60.
£60 and £30,
Double the thing.
So it's double.
Yeah, okay.
That makes sense. to me.
even better. £60 and £30.
And therefore the quarters would be 15, which is only 2 of them.
Yeah, perfect.
Double and double.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Or half and half.
So shall we vote on that first? Everyone happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay, and you're happy with that, Natalie? Okay, good. Okay, and then the second issue was to do with deposits, which I think might be more contentious. How do you feel? You wanted to do away with deposits?
No, I didn't really want to. I just took Gary's point that it's administratively difficult, but if we're already doing it, then I don't think it's a problem.
when do we change it then if we're already doing it? Can we?
Yeah, just keep on doing is what I'm saying.
You think?
I mean, and at what price do we make that deposit? Because
We could do 60 and 15, then it's even 75.
again, because the
Sorry.
would tell
If we did 60 and a 15, it would be an even 75.
60 plus 50, so 15 is a handling charge. So
Mhm.
and £60 a deposit. Well, again, we're keeping the same sort of figures, 60s and multiples.
I mean, 51 to 60 is barely inflation.
Mm.
So in that sense, I think
Yeah,
that's a
I
kind of
would
a
support that.
reasonable.
I would support that.
Sorry, have we ever taken a deposit and not given it back?
I don't know when the deposit
Yeah.
taking started.
Probably not.
I'm just struggling to think, what situation would it be if we took a plot back, which is probably more likely somebody just disappearing and not thinking, I must tell that person that I'm,
Yeah.
you know, I'm out for 3 months. So if we very rarely take it back, then perhaps, well, maybe there comes a point where we say, why don't we just not do it? Because then we save ourselves money coming in, recording it for accountants, and then potentially giving it back again at some point. It never forms part of the company's income and outgoings, but we're just holding it on behalf of somebody, which means it's accounted for in a separate way. I mean, I don't have a particular view. I'm perfectly content with either keeping it the same or not having one at all.
But it's an incentive to leave the plot in a good condition.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Essentially.
If you haven't got that incentive, people would just walk away, won't they? So, and then the town council has work to do to bring it up to scratch. So, yeah, I don't agree with that.
Can I just remind everybody, it's 155.
You're hoping to go at 2, are you?
No, I'm just saying that still got a lot to get through as well.
Yeah. Well, we think 2 very quick items. So can we just, how would you like to sum that up, Mark?
We've got the figures, we've got the costs, the charges, haven't we? So that's okay. If you feel that there's no evidence to support having a deposit, then should we not just work out how we're going to return those deposits if we want to? Or, I mean, these people that are going to be joining now are going to have an admin fee, aren't they?
Correct.
So can I just suggest that we have 2 votes? The first one, I support what Natalie said, that we have a £60 deposit and a £15 fee because we're already, and the other option is that we don't have a deposit and we return the deposit. 2 different votes.
Yeah. Good idea.
Sorry.
Natalie?
If we're including £300 of skip charges every year, we're going to be just breaking even with the fees.
This is why I think Natalie needs to go back and factor that in before coming back with.
Yeah, I just think should we defer this one to the next meeting?
we can.
I think we need to, personally.
That gives us time.
I think there's council before our next meeting, because I think the full council is in January. But can we ask the delegated authority to approve allotments?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
So we'll give officers delegated authority to revise the fees based on assuming at least 3 skips per annum to keep the allotments tidy, and probably £30 and £60 if that covers the fee. But we still have to make a decision about the deposit.
My follow-on point from that quick maths was if we didn't have the deposit, we could potentially put the fee higher again because it wouldn't be that much of a barrier. Because
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if we're going to have the skips, you see, so if you've agreed to the skips, then the naughty people's plastic chairs could go in the skip. Then you don't need a deposit.
What worries me with the deposit thing is those people have already given us a deposit. If they find out new people are not paying a deposit, they'll say, can I have a
Return the
deposit?
deposit.
But then they'll have to pay the £15 admin fee.
Okay.
the deposit, we have been returning deposits because we had some other system. We kept it for 3 months. We returned it. That was changed from this season, which was in September. So there's probably 15 people we've got a deposit from.
It'd be quite easy to return it if we needed to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the vote is that we give designated responsibility to the officers with regard to allotments. All those in favour?
Thank you.
Great, super. Moving on.
Thanks.
Come to, yes, a lot of hard work in that, Natalie. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So,
Memorandum of Understanding. The MOU on background and operational information is due for review in November. Officers recommend that the lead member for land and property joins a small working group to review and update the documents, including an EA representative, the CDC, Thames Water, Friends of Gumstall Brook representatives, and the private sluice gate operators. Anyone got any questions on that? No, so should we just vote in favour of that?
Who is going to comprise it and when do we decide who will be on that group?
I feel that you'll be on there. I'm assuming.
Well, it says there that the lead
Yeah.
member of the
Yeah.
land and property.
And I can compile something in the next week or so, the next 10 days, to see who comes back to us.
And the people who are likely to come are people like Jan Gronow, because she's already a member of the Friends of Gumstall Brook. What was your point? Did you want to be on it? Is that-
No, I'm very content that other people are on it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the offer.
Thank you. Right. And was it Natalie who had your hand up?
yeah, I think that it's sort of, the groups who else outside of land and property is already sort of set. So then I've got names, I just took them out because it's a public document.
Okay.
So from land and property has to vote to form this working subgroup,
Yeah.
and then who from land and property wants to be on it, because Marcus will be on it as officer, and then I suggested our lead member joins.
Okay. Anyone want to comment or shall we vote?
Just one is that I think it's an excellent idea and clearly updating it in November, excellent. The only problem may well be an EA representative may well appear. Getting a Thames Water representative to appear will be
Yes.
a significant challenge. That doesn't change the fact that I totally support the memorandum of understanding and the updating thereof.
Or just reviewing of it, really?
Mm.
We are lucky in that the memorandum of understanding is in a very good condition at the moment.
Yeah.
So now is a very good time to start up something new because it's less contentious than it would have been a couple of years ago. Great. Should we vote on this? Yeah, all those in favour? Yeah, unanimous, yeah, okay. And last item, not quite, the men's shed in Kings Hill. Would you like to talk about this?
Yeah,
Mark?
I can just summarise for you. So we propose to consider Kings Hill as a site for the men's shed, the Churns men's shed. As far as legal implications, there are no legal implications, no financial implications. Environmental, men's shed would support aims and objectives of the council. Climate, the men's shed ethos is to reduce and recycle, reuse, recycle. We recommend to approve the sites as stated. The background, men's shed facilitated by the Churn, looking to site the container on a long-term basis where the men's shed would meet. The container is funded by the Winston Trust. The initial agreement would be a 3-year license to occupy. Men's Shed is important as an organisation providing opportunities to men and women to meet, engage and learn new skills, woodwork, repairs, restoring, etc. Men's Shed will engage in community projects and volunteering grounds projects. The purpose of the report is to consider either approve or not the Kings Hill site, the men's shed container and appropriate charges. Kings Hill site is a spacious, non-residential building. There's no residential buildings nearby where the actual site is proposed. Utility services are easily available. There's toilet facilities available, a frequent bus route and parking available, and a 15-minute walk from town. Location and area proposed to locate behind 2 containers owned by CTC. You should have a plan. The plot is 10 by 15 metres. The churn collecting quotes for hard standing base and fence. Men's shed, normal operational hours are Monday to Friday, 10 to 3 o'clock. And I will pick up your suggestions from earlier to ask them to reduce their, or to limit their parking. Men's Shed is a valuable asset to the town to support men and women who consider their youth projects too. The license to occupy would contain not to cause noise or nuisance, to keep the site tidy and organised. They would produce their own private insurance, public liability insurance, comply to legislation of GDPR and required. If it was required, the churn or Men's Shed would pick up the cost.
Is it not required?
Because technically temporary, eh?
Yes.
Temporary is 28 days a year.
Oh,
A temporary structure, is it?
28 days a year. So that does require planning permission.
So I'll look into that one and I'll check that. Thank
It's not
you.
your problem. It's their problem.
Well, it's hard, yeah, don't know. I'll double.
Temporary means 28 days a year.
Okay, thanks.
that is definitely not temporary then.
Yeah, we've got 2 up there
That'd
already.
be very limited parking, I'd be fine with that.
Commercial rents is difficult to compare. We feel that the rent of approximately 1,800 would be considered as fair, and a reduction of 50% reduction for charities, so £900 advised fee.
Okay, lovely. Sure, so there's basically 2 issues there. One is to discuss whether it's a suitable site and any issues involved with the siting. And the second thing is to do with the cost. Does everyone feel that it's a good site for a shipping container containing work? Does anyone feel it's not the right site?
Very happy with the site, Chair, if I may. Just checking on how do they get power into it?
So we've got a spur that goes from the pavilion into the porter cabin.
Right.
On the map, I'll just show it's just that.
Oh, yeah.
Great stuff.
I think it looks like
And then we would take a spur at their cost, and they would also have a meter.
Yeah.
So we'll be charging all of the electric to them as well.
Perfect, thank you. And therefore £900 per annum would more than cover any admin costs that we would have.
Yeah.
And the only other point I would have is that if it is men and women, and certainly I'm used to men's sheds operating in the North Cotswolds and Cotswold Friends, and they are men. If there are women involved, then perhaps we should be calling them shed projects, not men's shed projects. It does send out a rather different.
Well, that's
different
the
message, has it not?
but the South Surrey shed is, the Thursday is called a community shed,
Yeah,
I suppose. And I think with the way things are changing in society, then they.
I think that's probably, thank you. I think it's probably down to the churn then, with feedback from us that says, do you really want to call it a men's shed? I would have thought the churn probably might not want to call it a men's shed. Community shed seems a much more appropriate term. I'm sure. But that's for the churn to decide, I guess.
I'll feed that back to Sarah at the churn.
Okay. Would you like to comment about parking, councillor Bloomer?
My point earlier in the pre-briefing was, if there's lots of people leaving after 3 o'clock, that will coincide with already all the people leaving from Kings Hill and Watermore School and et cetera, and that worries me in terms of the traffic and also in terms of the parking in the actual car park. But if we are able to say please limit your parking, then I'm happy with that.
At South Cerney, they've been basically starting quite late, although the actual times they're saying are like 9 till 3, I think. It's really more like 10 till 2. I think that's a fairly.
But I do think it is worth feeding back to the schools. And if they do have a serious thing to raise, then I think it's worth hearing them. And also, do we know, I mean, I've never been to a men's community or whatever. The issue with the noise at Citibank was raised quite a lot. Do we know if this is going to be audible for the kids in the schools? And disturbing their
It's
learning?
quite far away.
Is it far enough away? Okay,
Yeah, it's 100 yards.
okay.
Yeah, okay, that's good. But there is actually a point in there's a list of four or five things. Under 4.5, A, does not cause any new noise or nuisance to surrounding community spaces.
If that would have been there on the Citibank agreement as well, wouldn't it?
It was, but I think that we knew a little bit.
Yeah.
I think this is more suitable for this
Yeah.
location than.
I can bear on that.
Okay, lovely. So that was point A. So to approve the Kingshill site as the location of the Children's Men's Community Shed project. All those in favour? That's great.
Right.
So moving on to approve the rent of £900 PA plus any utility charges. So do you want to say a little bit more about how you arrived at that? You said that a regular rate would be 1,800.
The benchmarker of the year.
That's not. Basically, it was quite hard to benchmark. I was looking at storage containers, which I looked at Bathurst with electric and without electric, and then a unit in Love Lane. And they're all not quite what we're offering, because what we're offering is the land, because they have like a container. So then I looked at what other community groups that we rent land to, and the closest one I got was the Petanque Club, who leads the Petanque pitch, which is 645 square metres 3 times a week throughout the year, and what we charge them. And I used that as a basis. Because it's essentially amenity grassland. It doesn't really have a value that we're giving them.
Right.
That's why I went to community groups to see how we charge them, and came up with that based on the amount. Basically, it's £1 a square foot.
Okay. But, Councillor Selwyn?
Well, and it is entirely consistent with the way the council operates. For example, community services with fees and charges will give generally 50% reduction to charities like the banners we have in town. So that is a consistent policy that links in with the other departments as well. So I'm content with that.
A reduction for charities is fairly consistent.
Yeah, and it's the same level of discount we're giving as community services would as well.
Okay. Does anyone have a feel on whether the original price be like 1,800, whether that is a fair thing to actually start the reduction on? Okay, I didn't explain that very well.
Yeah.
I think what Natalie suggested, that she just use the tank as her base, is fine.
And it's £17 a week, £17.30 a week.
And we can review this again next year.
It'll always be reviewed, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone got any comments before we vote?
Happy with that.
Okay, so shall we vote on whether to accept this figure of £900 per annum? And obviously they pay for any utility charges and any additional costs. Are you unanimous?
Lovely, thank you.
Great, okay, so that's kind of it. We have to do some stuff. Any correspondence? Any correspondence? No. And so we discussed the all-member briefing and wider communication. I guess you can work out what the key items are. Something from each.
Yeah, well, we'll have to communicate the new charges, won't we?
Well, we're going to go to council.
Go to council first.
Share the memorandum of understanding, the men's shed, and the work programme updates.
Yeah.
Lawrence, we've got delegated authority so that's not going to be ready to chair.
No, but you might also want to add, if I may, the fact that the group agree that we will not offset losses. Our fees and charges will respect the fact that we need to have, we need to not be losing money on any of these things, which
Yeah.
seems perfectly reasonable.
Or you could say disproportionately subsidizing certain sectors of the community at the expense of others.
Well, yeah. The principle is that if you have a service, you pay for the cost of that service. If it's not
Yeah.
it's not an en bloc service. So
But the
yes,
other people don't pay for their service.
that's right. So if you don't have a green bin, you don't subsidise people that have a green bin.
Yeah. So put that in elegant language, Natalie.
User pays.
Gosh, next meeting next year.
Yeah.
Woo. Happy Christmas.
I'm glad it's not on February the 14th because
There you go.
you've interrupted my card opening. The truck will be. Do we know why it's location TBC?
Yes, we don't have use of this room anymore. This will be our last meeting in this room.
Oh.
Right, Barclays are moving in here.
Really?
Barclays the bank.
Why?
You want to come up here to take care?
Are we still recording?
Yes, we're closing the meeting.
Let's close the meeting.
Oh, at the end of the meeting.
Meeting hasn't quite closed. I declare the meeting over.
Great. We need to get you a gavel.
Oh,
So, hold on, so Barclays is gonna